This is White Plains Week, the weekly roundup of White Plains, Westchester, and world news. With John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com. Jim Benneroff, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. And me, Peter Katz, formerly with NBC, ABC News, and stations from Boston to Los Angeles. White Plains Week, what's happening, who are the newsmakers, what's in store for the future. The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76, Verizon Fios Channel 45, and on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. and Ms. White Plains, Westchester, and the world, and all you in the crosshairs out there. Keep your wallet under cover, your head down, and your withholding up. The Citizen Net reporter, John Bailey, and Peter Katz, the anchor for all seasons, with you on White Plains Week in its 17th year on White Plains Television. Jim Benneroff is on assignment this week. And going right to the headlines, here's what's happening in White Plains, New York, USA. This week, January 12th, George Latimer, the new Westchester executive, is celebrated by hundreds at a 2.5-hour inauguration ceremony at Westchester Community College. At his address at Westchester County Association Breakfast Wednesday, he called for shared services among towns, county, and school districts, appeared to suggest the county work with school districts to help them trim expenses and property tax increases. He has not yet contacted the White Plains School District. Shelley Mayer is nominated by Westchester Democratic Committee to run for Mr. Latimer's former Senate District 37 seat. Dan Shore of White Plains announced he is a candidate to oppose her on the Republican ticket. White Plains former Councilman Benjamin Boykin, county legislator, was voted chairman of the Westchester County Board of Legislators in a 13-3 vote. Congratulations, Ben. White Plains prepares for its annual Dr. Martin Luther King breakfast Monday at 8 at the Crown Plaza Hotel. White Plains swears in re-elected Mayor Tom Roach and newly elected Common Council member Justin Bresch and returning council members John Martin and John Kirkpatrick. White Plains hires Sergio Sensi as Commissioner of Finance, replacing Michael Janito. The French-American School approval has its day in court next week before Judge Lefkowitz, as the judge will consider the Article 78 action brought by the Gedney Association and 2 individuals to overturn the approval. The Council of Neighborhood Associations discussed the need for a revised comprehensive plan for the city, a really interesting thing. And the city has reported as taking the position that the comprehensive plan does not need updating. Many around the CNA roundtable disagreed. Tomorrow from 1 to 3 at the White Plains Public Library, that's Saturday afternoon, the plans for reconstructing and designing Route 119, Terrytown Road, to accommodate bicycles and improve pedestrian traffic flow will be presented. Multi-million-dollar home sales are up in Westchester County. Houlihan Lawrence reports the top 10 Tony towns, the upper 1% like best. White Plains did not make the list. The Hudson Gateway Realtors Association reports 2017 residential sales for Westchester, Rockland, Putnam, and Dutchess were up 4% over 2016, but well behind the 2016 12.5% rise in sales. Westchester County's single-family home sales were even. The sales price up to $642,000. This is last weekend. You can see The Hunchback of Notre Dame at White Plains Performing Arts Center. Great show. You should go see it. And now, Peter, to the White Plains Week Rolo News Real March of Time. And it was County Executive George Latimer's inauguration week this week. Peter Katz was there.
Indeed, John, and I was there along with a bunch of other people.
The Hankin Academic Arts Building Theater on the Valhalla campus of Westchester Community College was filled to its capacity of about 400, with 200 more in an overflow room for the January 7th ceremonial inauguration of George Latimer as Westchester County Executive. He had taken the formal oath and assumed office on January 1st. Bagpipes and drums and marchers and politicians from both parties were on hand, although Democrat office holders and volunteers who had worked on the Latimer campaign predominated. On stage with Latimer for the event were Westchester District Attorney Anthony Scarpino, Congressman Elliot Engel, State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, State Senator Andrea Stewart Cousins, Congresswoman Nita Lowey, who was the MC, Governor Andrew Cuomo, and County Clerk Tim Idoni. When Attorney General Schneiderman spoke, he made a not-too-veiled reference to the book Fire and Fury, which says White House staffers characterized President Trump as behaving like a child.
And I have to speak and run because I've got places to go and people to sue, but I did not want to miss this opportunity to be here for George's inauguration because I have known and admired George for a long time. And let me make a couple of quick observations. One, George Latimer is a grown-up. And at a time when America is crying out for grown-up leadership, you are providing it here in Westchester.
Cuomo blasted the Republicans' federal tax law changes.
They have assaulted the state of New York. What the tax bill did is it targets the Democratic states to serve as a piggy bank to fund the tax cut in the red states. The state and local issue, loss of deductibility, hurts New York, hurts California, hurts 12 other states. Conveniently, all Democratic states. It takes $18 billion from the state of New York, on top of the $48 billion that the federal government already takes from the state of New York. New York State is the #1 donor state in the nation, meaning we send more money to Washington than we get back. And there is no state in the nation that gives more money to Washington and gets back less than the state of New York. And that's why to steal another $18 billion from New York under the state and local deduction is really reprehensible. It is so bad that our Attorney General had to leave here. You know why? He had to leave because he is suing the federal government for what they're doing to the state of New York.
Cuomo administered the ceremonial oath of office as some of Latimer's family members looked on, and in his remarks, Latimer thanked Republican Rob Astorino for his 8 years of service as county executive and pledged an administration of inclusion and respect.
No Democrat or Republican, conservative, liberal, or moderate need fear that their voice will be ignored. But those voices, all of our voices, should show respect for all other voices. When we raise rudeness to a right, we work at destroying this fragile democracy. We have every right to hold strong beliefs. But when we turn strong beliefs into insulting, accusatory rhetoric, we pit neighbor against neighbor. It is tearing our country apart, and we cannot let it tear our county apart. Let us use each day with urgency. Let us ensure that our finances are sound. Let us ensure that our facilities are repaired and maintained. Let us ensure the services that we must deliver are done well daily, effectively and efficiently in honesty. Let us debate the issues before us: the airport, playland, social services, the environment, housing, consumer protection, immigrant rights, and come to conclusion and decision. And if we do that together, we will have done our jobs as Americans and as citizens of Westchester. Thank you.
And John Latimer plunged right in the next day, getting to work at the office.
So far this week, he's held a couple of news conferences, one to explain why a professional basketball league would not be coming to the Westchester County Center, at least for now. They're still negotiating. Right. And also to announce that a contract had been reached for Westchester Community College for the CSEA members over there, including faculty members.
Yes, and he amplified his Bring Down the House inaugural address, Peter, by addressing the annual Westchester County Association Wednesday, delivering a Churchillian address of about 45 minutes, reminiscing about the bad year of 1968, 50 years ago, saying the county needed to share services with towns and cities and schools and stop thinking of photo ops, but actually make decisions and make the hard decisions. And
now you know, John, actually that's his second major reach out to the business community in Westchester. He had addressed a breakfast meeting for the Business Council of Westchester over in Tarrytown. And essentially the same reconciliatory theme was voiced there.
Absolutely, and he also vaguely hinted that the county would work with school districts to mitigate districts' property taxes, but did not spell that out, and he has not contacted the White Plains School District yet, I am told. Assemblywoman Shelley Mayer won the Democratic nod to run for county executive, Latimer's vacant New York State Senate district seat, and Mayer from Yonkers got the nod over Yonkers Mayor Mike Spano, who withdrew from consideration. White Plains' Diane Shore on the right announced he would seek the Republican nomination to run against Mayor. He has worked as a prosecutor with the Westchester County DA's office, and he has also done Yonkers work up till now. Former Councilman Benjamin Boykin needed the votes of all 4 Republicans plus 9 Democrats to receive the chairman of the Board of the Legislators position over Catherine Parker of Rye, who had the support of 7 of the 12 Democrats. Parker was given the majority leader position as a consolation. And
now, we all know Ben Boykin from his time here in White Plains. He served on the White Plains Common Council. He's well known for his involvement with various community organizations. He's been a Westchester County legislator for a while now. His district is, the way it's set up now, is just part of White Plains. He covers all of Scarsdale and a bit of Greenburgh. But this elevation to the chairmanship is a fairly significant move for him, not only in terms of his political career, but in terms of his ability to influence what happens in Westchester County. He has a reputation as being a conciliatory person, someone who can bring together divergent views, divergent people, and cut through a lot of the politics, which sometimes ends up where the Board of Legislators just becomes tangled in its own political infighting.
They become slugging into tar babies, you know. And he is also being interviewed on People to Be Heard next Thursday evening.
Yes, that program is seen on most of these same stations. Also will be available on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com and on YouTube and on WPCommunitymedia.org. It's called People to Be Heard.
Right. And another thing that I've lost my place here in the script, ladies and gentlemen. However, there's always something to fall back on, and that is Trump, the president.
In other words, throw it to me.
That's right, I'm throwing it to you.
Okay, now look, because this program plays during what's called family hours, I won't use it here, but there was a word which has already appeared in the Washington Post and on major television networks, but which some people might find offensive by itself. Now, coming from the mouth of the President of the United States, this particular word is not only offensive, but in the context in which Donald Trump used it, it is despicable and should be an embarrassment to anyone who has any sort of self-respect, love of country, and respect for the institution of President of the United States. You see, in case anyone had any doubts of whether Donald J. Trump is a racist, those doubts could have been put to rest on Thursday, yesterday, when in a meeting with congressional leaders at the White House to discuss immigration, Trump, referring to African countries and Haiti and El Salvador, said, and this is a quote, "Why are we having all these people from S blank, blank, blank whole countries come here?" You can fill in the blank, blank, blank part of it. Trump went on to say that people from countries such as Norway, which have largely white populations, should be allowed to come here. The White House did not deny that Trump said what he said. The reports to the Washington Post, NBC News, and subsequently just about every other news source you can name came from very reputable, reliable people who were in the room and heard him say it. This morning, now after waiting so many hours to figure out how to handle this, Trump tweeted saying, "I didn't say that." He said, "What I said was high crime countries, not S blank, blank, blank whole countries."
1984
You can't make
returns.
this stuff up.
Yes.
And you really can't, what you really can't make up is that after this meeting where he said all these things, and that was just one of the things he said about immigration, he went to record his message for Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday on Monday. Amazing. Trump told the Wall Street Journal this week that he has a very good relationship with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. As far as anyone can tell, Trump has never even talked to Kim Jong-un. Trump is the same guy who threatened to destroy North Korea and got into a juvenile male anatomy confrontation, mine is bigger than yours, by
Last
claiming
week, yeah.
that his nuclear button is bigger than Kim Jong-un's nuclear button. Now, to go from threatening nuclear war several times to saying he has a very good relationship is, at best, I find, delusional. Why does Trump stay upstairs in the White House private living quarters and out of the Oval Office until around 11 a.m., as reported in the best-selling book Fire and Fury, which I'm now reading, by the way. It's a fast read. Instead of being at work behind his Oval Office desk by around 7 a.m. like other presidents have been? How about because he's upstairs running his businesses out of the White House from a battery of cell phones and personal computers? Steve Bannon, Trump's fired chief strategist in the White House, will appear before a closed-door session of the House Intelligence Committee next week. Republicans on that committee have been doing their best to torpedo the investigation into the Trump involvement with Russia. Bannon this week was fired from the radical right-wing website Breitbart. We haven't quite hit the one-year mark with Trump as president, but the Washington Post this week determined Trump has already passed the 2,000 lie mark, telling 2,000 significant lies to the American people since taking office. When Trump flew at taxpayer expense of about $1 million to make an appearance lasting about 5 minutes at the Georgia-Alabama football game in Atlanta this week, part of what he did was to stand with the members of both colleges' ROTC during the national anthem. Tens of thousands of people in the stadium sang along with the anthem, but in close-ups shown on ESPN, it was apparent that Trump did not know the words. His lips would start to form a word or two and then stop, and then start, and then stop. Trump, by the way, got as many boos as cheers when he walked onto the field with the ROTC cadets. Yeah. The Trump administration's failure to provide the help needed to rebuild Puerto Rico after the hurricanes now is impacting sick people here in the U.S. mainland because the pharmaceutical factories in Puerto Rico remain unable to operate. There is a shortage now of intravenous fluids affecting hospitals and clinics throughout the U.S. Patients are not able to be given the infusions they need, especially fluids to combat dehydration and fluids used as carriers of concentrated drugs.
And this is not news. This was said last fall.
We reported at the time of the hurricanes about Puerto Rico being a major center for manufacturing of drugs. The White House is pushing a plan to require people to work if they want to get Medicaid. Never mind that some of the reasons some people need Medicaid is that they're out of work or too disabled to work.
Or they can't work. I mean, what? This is
President Trump came out against an upcoming vote in which the House of Representatives was expected to approve keeping the FISA warrant program, which allows intelligence agencies to get a warrant from a secret court to do things like wiretapping foreign spies. Then apparently, after someone explained to him what he had come out against, he reversed himself and supported keeping the FISA program alive. Remember when Trump traveled to the Carrier air conditioner plant in Indiana and promised that jobs would stay in the Indianapolis area, and the company got millions in tax breaks to keep jobs in the U.S. at that plant?
I remember that.
You remember? Well, this week, 216 more of those jobs left Indianapolis for Mexico.
You can't trust these corporations.
More than 1,000 so far
Yes.
that have fled or been moved by Carrier from Indiana to Mexico. Don't know if the Washington Post included that lie in its count of 2,000 Trump lies.
Credibility counts.
As I mentioned, Trump said immigrants from Norway are welcome in the U.S., and he met with Norway's Prime Minister at the White House this week. But the White House announcement, which said he'd be meeting with the Prime Minister of Norway, said not Norway, it said Normay. They invented a new country. Someone at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue either needs a good world map or a lesson in proofreading.
Doing a frantic Google search.
Normay. Now, if you happen to see it this morning, then you know already. If you didn't happen to see it, I'm going to show it to you. This is the New York Daily News. This is the cover. This is the reaction to Trump's using that term against countries in Latin America, against countries in Africa, using that term S blank, 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 hole.
A cover to remember, right up where Ford the City dropped dead. Right.
In a way, this is very, very sad and disheartening.
Particularly on this weekend coming up.
Granted, there's freedom of the press. Granted, the Daily News is making a very, very strong point with this front page today. But we all need to take a step back and think, what is going on that our discourse in this country has gotten to this point?
Very true. We did not tell you last week about the White Plains Common Council swearing-in ceremonies. Most notable for Councilman Justin Brash's 10-minute swearing-in speech, which you can see on White Plains TV, Channel 75, and on the city website. The city also announced Sergio Sensi was hired as Commissioner of Finance. He started in White Plains back in 2001, moved to Tuckahoe, and for the last 11 years was Deputy Commissioner of Finance for Westchester County. Welcome aboard. The French-American School of New York heads back to court this coming week, and John Sheen and again the association analyzes the position of the Article 78 suit on people to be heard this week.
Again, on many of these same stations or on the internet, whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, wpcommunitymedia.org.
Right. The Council of Neighborhood Associations met and discussed the city comprehensive plan, which has not been revised since 2011.
Remember when the comprehensive plan used to be a really hot political issue? It was supposed to be updated every 5 years. There was a major rewrite decades ago of that involving hundreds of people, and candidates would run using that as a major part of their platform. We're going to update the comprehensive plan. We're going to keep it current. Well, now all of a sudden we don't have to update the comprehensive plan.
That's what the city told Bill Brady, who is one of the co-presidents. Now, the CNA co-president, Bob Brady, basically has the honor of announcing the shocker of the week. There will be a public unveiling of the new street design for Route 119, Old Terrytown Road, from 1 to 3 p.m. Saturday afternoon. Brady said it was announced to neighborhood associations. But I looked for notice of it on the city website, and there was nothing. I did a search using these words underneath the blue arrow, and bingo, thanks to the detective Representatives at Google, I found this incredible page. This is one more instance of how the city and the folks redoing the Mystery 287 bus rapid transit link claim to keep the claim to keep the public informed, but do not publicize their attempts to get input adequately. This is a terrible obfuscation. And, you know, I just was stunned. That's 1 to 3 tomorrow afternoon, Saturday.
At the public library, right?
Yes,
White Plains Public Library.
Multi-million, and you know what they're doing? They're going to put in bicycle lanes on 119. They're going to explain them.
Well, sure. Well, why not put in bike lanes? Narrow.
Yeah, that'll make the traffic move well.
You can do that by narrowing the traffic lanes if you have to. And then what about bus rapid transit? Won't bus rapid transit want to have its presence
They would need a lane too. That's what we were always told. Is anybody thinking, is this organized? I don't think so. And truly, though, not publicizing this stuff in a better manner, particularly on the always out-of-date city website, always having notice of events that have already taken place 3 weeks ago, which I had this morning. I mean, let's go to work and fix that website up. It's embarrassing. Multi-million-dollar home sales are up 4% over sales in 2016. And Houlihan Lawrence reported the 10 most sought-after towns with the most high-end residential sales, over $2 million. And there they are, folks. And sadly, White Plains is not on there. Rye and Scarsdale have 47% of the high-end sales. Meanwhile, the Hudson Gateway Realtors say Westchester single-family sales home sales were even over last year, and also lack of inventory is hurting both the high-end market and the middle market.
You know, it's an interesting dynamic because lack of inventory should drive prices higher, but high taxes drive prices lower. The uncertainty over what's happened with the federal tax revisions, whereby the deductibility of state and local taxes, including the heavy property taxes here in Westchester, has been capped now at $10,000 beginning this year, 2018, really serves to keep a lid on prices. What is kind of discouraging, I think, for many homeowners here, especially in the middle class, especially retirees in White Plains, anywhere in Westchester, is the fact that while the mansions are selling well, so it seems,
yes,
while their prices are really good at this point, the rest are feeling a pinch.
Yes, and well, it's all about the 1%, Peter.
Is it?
Yes, that's
Maybe
what we
so.
that's what we now have. And don't forget the Martin Luther King Day breakfast Monday at 8 at the Crown Plaza. Always a wonderful event. Call the Thomas Slater Center if you wish to attend. And now here's a last shot, a composite look of the personalities, the grandeur of the beginning of the George Latimer administration last Sunday.
A lot of people in the audience,
Yes.
from Mike Spano to David Buchwald, Larry Schwartz. My God, there's a name from Governor Cuomo's past.
Right.
Andy Spano again, Tom Abenante.
Right. And that's it for another wild White Plains Week. John Bailey, Peter Katz for Jim Beneroff. Good night, for White Plains Week.
This has been White Plains Week. News and commentary about White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week, produced by White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, and presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76 and Verizon Fios Channel 45. You may view White Plains Week anytime on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. For White Plains Week, this is Peter Katz speaking.